The 7-Step Mandate: How Humanity Joins the Cosmos. Introduction: The historical checkmate. Humanity finds itself in a historical checkmate, not an intellectual grandmaster's game, but a tragic deadlock. Our technological power, from AI to biotechnology and weapons of mass destruction, is growing exponentially, while our moral and political systems are hopelessly stuck in the mud of the 19th century. In the eyes of an advanced cosmic civilization, we are not the crown of creation. We are a child with a loaded gun. The current situation is fundamentally unsustainable. Our scarcity economy and the military-industrial complex survive by the grace of conflict. We are conditioned to solve every problem with technology and to transform every technology into a weapon. Peace has never been so close and yet so unreachable. The bitter irony is, we are both the source of peace and the weapon with which that peace is fought. But almost no one realizes that we ourselves are literally the fuel for the system that oppresses us. Precisely now that we have reached the 0 point of human history, an era of total mind and crowd control, the greatest opportunity of our existence presents itself: joining our cosmic family. Here lies the catch-22. We need the help of this family to break out of our destructive patterns. But as long as we are stuck in those patterns, we pose too great a risk for open contact. As I argued in my earlier video, why our oppressors fear disclosure more than ET, the power structures do not fear the truth because of the extraterrestrials, but because of the freedom it gives humanity. The UPATM Peace Manifesto, which we will discuss later, is the key to cracking this paradox. It is based on the unshakable conviction that we can escape this checkmate. For when all conventional solutions fail, only one way out remains. The problem must solve itself through a collective leap in consciousness. The reward is nothing less than an evolutionary breakthrough, an eternal, healthy, and happy life in a technologically perfect and spiritually mature world. Part 1. The Necessity of Peace. Many skeptics and science fiction fans fear the dark forest theory, the idea that the universe is a hostile jungle where civilizations destroy each other preventively. However, modern science and game theory show that this scenario is mathematically impossible in the long run for an interstellar species. 1.1. The Evolution of Cooperation. Robert Axelrod. Cooperation is not a soft, spiritual concept. It is a mathematical winning strategy. The political scientist Robert Axelrod organized computer tournaments around the prisoner's dilemma. The winner was consistently the strategy tit for tat: start with trust, cooperation, and then mirror the behavior of the other. The universal law. In a system where parties meet each other repeatedly, aggression is punished with mutual destruction. Cooperation, on the other hand, creates a surplus of energy and resources. The interstellar threshold. A civilization that wants to make the leap to the stars needs an unimaginable amount of energy and collective focus. A species that remains internally divided and wastes energy, manpower, and resources on wars simply never reaches the technological threshold to escape their own gravity. Peace is therefore a technical condition for space travel. 1.2. The Biology of Morality. Franz de Waal. Morality is not a religious invention, but a biological survival mechanism. The famous primatologist Franz de Waal proved that the building blocks of morality, empathy, reciprocity, and a sense of justice, are deeply anchored in the biology of social mammal animals. Collective intelligence. To build an interstellar spaceship, you need millions of specialists who trust each other blindly. A solitary predator might be able to hunt, but can never develop a complex technology. Biological inhibitions. A technological species must have developed mechanisms to minimize violence within its own group. Otherwise, they would not have survived the discovery of gunpowder or nuclear fission. 1.3. The Cosmic Rule. Clean up your backyard. This brings us to the logical demand of a mature interstellar civilization. Suppose we were that advanced species, and we encountered a planet where the inhabitants point nuclear missiles at each other and suffocate their own atmosphere while dreaming about space travel. What would we do? The quarantine logic. An interstellar civilization will never allow an immature species, a species that pollutes its own backyard and wages war, to spread outside its own solar system. This is not a judgment, but cosmic hygiene. Technological maturity. Scientifically speaking, there is a link between energy management and ethics. The Russian astronomer Nikolai Kardashev created a scale for civilizations based on their energy consumption. A civilization that can use the energy of an entire star, type 2, has, by definition, learned how not to destroy their environment. The entrance requirement. The message from ET to humanity is not, "We are attacking," but grow up. The rule is simple. Don't make a mess of your own backyard before you go out into the street. As long as we pollute our own planet and shed each other's blood, we are a biological risk to the rest of the cosmos. Our interstellar visa will only be approved when we prove that we can manage our own planet healthily as a unity. Part 2. The Gateway to the Stars. 2.1. The Great Filter, the Cosmic Barrier. The question of why the universe appears seemingly silent is often summarized in the famous Fermi paradox. If intelligent life is statistically plausible and the universe should be a bustling hive of activity, why do we experience a deafening silence? One possible explanation for this is the Great Filter, a concept by Robin Hanson. It describes an extremely difficult barrier in the development of intelligent species. Many civilizations reach a high technological level, but few survive the barrier without external help. Possible filters leading to self-destruction, nuclear catastrophes, the destruction of one's own habitat through armed conflict, ecological collapse, the irreparable depletion of the home planet's vital resources, uncontrollable AI, technology that exceeds the creator's control, biotechnological disasters, accidents or malicious use of genetic engineering, internal social instability, the inability to cooperate as a species under high pressure. These risks arise precisely in the phase where technological power is greater than moral maturity. A civilization that gets stuck at this barrier finds itself in a catch-22. We need help from civilizations that have already tackled this problem. But how do we reach them if they do not show themselves? The BETH logic and the experience with Tom, personal observations of extraterrestrial entities such as Tom, suggest that evolution elsewhere can proceed very differently. Tom and his species originate from a gas planet without a hard surface. This has fundamental consequences for their history. Without solid raw materials and heat sources, the invention of the wheel, metalworking, or fire is impossible. Without metal in laboratories, the production of cannons, warships, or nuclear bombs is excluded. They float in a thin atmosphere, a feather-light species of approximately 15 kilograms that is physically incapable of the heavy, destructive industry that forms our Great Filter. They have passed the filter due to their unique biological and planetary nature, which makes them inherently peaceful. However, because this is still unprovable for science, I have translated this into the BETH Hypothesis. 2.2. The BETH Hypothesis and the UPATM Framework. The BETH Hypothesis, Benign Ethics Hypothesis, states that a civilization capable of interstellar travel has, by definition, passed through a phase in which technological power is synchronized with moral and social stability. The central premise of BETH. If an extraterrestrial civilization is observing us or is present here, then that civilization is peaceful. This is not idealism, but an evolutionary law. Aggressive or unstable civilizations destroy themselves before they reach the stars. Within this framework, my drafted UPATM Manifesto, Universal Peace and Truth Manifesto, serves as the human roadmap. It defines the principles necessary to pass our own Great Filter: planetary cooperation, an end to national rivalry, transparency of knowledge, openness about our own technology and extraterrestrial presence, peaceful coordination, systems of power that serve rather than dominate. 3 empirical clues supporting BETH: non-aggressive observation. Possible extraterrestrial activity shows characteristics of monitoring and respect for our local development, rather than political interference or territorial expansion. Gradual disclosure. A stable civilization does not force a shock, but allows indirect signals so that we can psychologically adapt to the cosmic reality. Contact after stabilization. Open interaction only takes place when humanity proves that it can manage its own technological risks and internal conflicts. Conclusion. Access to the cosmic community is not just a technological matter, but a moral milestone. The UPATM Manifesto provides the planetary structure necessary to make this mature interaction possible. Part 3. The bridge between God and Darwin. Before humanity is ready for a place among the stars, we must also heal our greatest internal psychological fault line, the apparent struggle between religion and science. This struggle keeps us in a survival mode, fighting for your own truth, instead of a growth mode, searching for the truth. Creevolution is the synthesis that ends this war. 3.1. Creevolution, the information revolution. The mistake of the last 150 years is the assumption that mechanism replaces intention. If we understand how a car works, mechanics, it does not mean there was no designer. In Creevolution, we apply this principle to biology via information theory. Science, the algorithm. Evolutionary theory describes the dynamics of life. It is the self-steering algorithm that filters the most efficient forms through natural selection and mutation. Science studies the hardware and the execution of the code. Religion, the source code. Creation describes the origin and the intention. It defines the laws, the source code, within which the algorithm is allowed to run. Religion tries to understand the programmer behind the code. 3.2 DNA as a universal programming language. The strongest evidence for unification lies in the nature of our DNA, digital storage. DNA is not a vague life force. It is a digital code built from 4 chemical bases, A, T, C, G. It functions exactly like the binary code 0 and 1 of our software. Information density. The complexity of information in a single human cell exceeds any software humanity has ever written. The law of the code. In all known physics, there is no example of a complex functional code that originated without a source of information, intelligence. The Creevolution premise. Evolution is not proof that God does not exist. Evolution is proof of how brilliantly the code is written. A static creation, everything ready at once, is like a paper book. An evolving creation is like a self-learning AI algorithm that responds to its environment. Which of the two testifies to a greater intelligence? 3.3. The semantic barrier. Species versus variation. Polarization is often maintained by the definition of species. Microevolution. The creationist accepts that a wolf can become a pug, variation within the species. Macroevolution. The scientist sees that 10,000 such steps over millions of years lead to a completely new form. Creevolution solves this by pointing to the fluid blueprint. The creator did not make static clay models, but a dynamic system that unfolds through time. The quiet periods in the fossil record are the moments when the algorithm runs stably. The leaps are the moments when the source code rolls out a new module, punctuated equilibrium. 3.4. The diplomatic function of Creevolution. Why is this crucial for cosmic unification? As long as humanity is divided over its own origin, we encounter the cosmos as a confused, quarreling species. A materialist scientist meeting ET will only look at biology and technology, missing the spiritual depth. A dogmatic believer meeting ET will label them as demonic because they do not fit into his limited worldview. Creevolution creates a shared platform. We are a biological product of a universal algorithm, driven by a cosmic source. This makes us family to every other civilization that has evolved according to the same universal laws. Part 4. The architecture of the transition. 4.1. The psychology of the shock. We currently find ourselves in what philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn called the crisis phase. A paradigm shift never occurs without resistance. When a worldview shows too many holes, a fixed pattern follows. Denial. The old system defends the status quo. Crisis. Anomalies accumulate until they can no longer be ignored. Shift. A new model replaces the old one. The UAP anomaly is the crack in our pre-Copernican wall. The fact that we are not technologically and biologically isolated simply no longer fits into the current box. Disclosure is therefore not a disaster, but a liberation. Just as the discovery that the Earth revolves around the Sun broke open our worldview, the recognition of a cosmic presence frees us from a perspective that has become too small. The shock we feel is not the fear of the unknown, but the growing pains of a species outgrowing its boundaries. This transition is inevitable, but to make the landing safe, we need a new operating system. 4.2. The new operating system, UPAT-M and EX.PAT. Humanity is currently in a global checkmate, not because one country or ideology has won, but because the world system itself has stalled. Centuries of geopolitical competition have woven an impenetrable web of political, military, and financial interests. This system, the financial military monster, maintains itself through a compelling logic. Whoever stops competing first loses everything. In a chess game where both players have completely locked each other down, a direct attack is pointless. You cannot defeat a monster with its own weapons. The only way out is to fundamentally change the rules of the game. 4.2.1 UPAT-M Universal Peace and Truth Manifesto. The UPAT-M Manifesto is not a new power structure or political party. It is a proposal for the universal rules of the game for a mature planetary civilization. If the current game stalls, we must reset the pieces and start over, according to 3 basic principles. Transparency of power. Invisible networks create mistrust and conflict. Structures with global influence must be accountable to humanity. Truth over propaganda. Decisions about our future, especially regarding UAPs and advanced technology, must be based on open, verifiable science, not on military classification. Planetary interest over rivalry. Disclosure and first contact are not national trophies. They are existential issues that we must address as a single species. UPAT-M shifts the goal of the system from dominance over one another to cooperation as a whole. 4.2.2 Example PAT. Explaining and executing peace and truth. To activate these principles, this model introduces X.PAT. This is not a world government, but a powerless interface organ. The sole task of X.PAT is the collection, verification, and unfiltered communication of information that concerns all of humanity. X.PAT operates outside the control of armies or intelligence services and focuses specifically on independent research into UAP phenomena, verification of extraterrestrial presence and technology, preparing society for first contact scenarios via maximum open data. 4.2.3 Changing the system goal. Systems thinker Donella Meadows argued that the most powerful way to transform a system is not by adjusting the rules, but by changing the goal. The current goal is survival and dominance relative to the other. The new goal of UPAT-M is how do we grow together toward a mature role in the universe? When we realize that we are part of a larger cosmic ecosystem, the logic of trench warfare disappears. But to get there, we must first look deep into the eyes of the monster. In the next section, 4.3, the map of power, we analyze the anatomy of current power and why disclosure within this old system is impossible. 4.3, the map of power, breaking the stalemate. To understand why the truth about our cosmic context has been under lock and key for decades, we must stop looking at individual good or bad actors. We must look at the system. The reality of power on Earth is not organized around truth, but around survival in a world of competition. What you see here is the map of power. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the blueprint of how our modern world maintains itself. It is a complex network of interdependent power structures that have grown historically around 3 iron principles: national security, technological advantage, and geopolitical rivalry. Look at the clusters on this map. National governments, managing legislation and diplomacy. Military structures, guarding the most advanced technologies. Intelligence agencies, controlling the information infrastructure. Financial power centers, dictating global stability. Industrial conglomerates, where the actual hardware of our defense is developed. Academic institutions that are often dependent on the same system for their funding. Why does this system make disclosure almost impossible? The problem is structural. When information about an unknown technology or an extraterrestrial presence enters this system, an automatic reflex occurs. Classification. One does not necessarily fear the extraterrestrials. One fears the extraterrestrial technology in the hands of the geopolitical rival. Information is declared secret to maintain a strategic advantage or to prevent social unrest. The result is a self-reinforcing spiral of secrecy. The military classifies, governments confirm, scientists are denied access, and the public sees only a filtered shadow of reality. Over time, this web becomes so complex that even the highest leaders only see a fraction of the total picture. We are in a worldwide checkmate. No single player dares to be the first to put their cards on the table, for fear that the opponent will seize the advantage. The result? A collective paralysis, in which mistrust is the default and humanity as a whole pays the price. This is where UPATM intervenes. The Universal Peace and Truth Manifesto does not try to break this system with violence. That would only strengthen the defense reflex. Instead, UPATM introduces a new frame of reference, the planetary context. UPATM argues that matters such as extraterrestrial technology, UAP phenomena, and first contact scenarios are by definition common heritage. They are issues that transcend national sovereignty. By labeling this information as being of planetary interest, the logic of using it as a military weapon disappears. Here, the role of X.PAT becomes crucial. As an independent international interface, X.PAT can bridge the gap between existing power structures and the world's population. It offers a path to openness that respects national security but demands scientific transparency, from power to responsibility. The map of power shows us that we are trapped in an outdated logic. The transition to a cosmic civilization requires an evolution of our responsibility. Power must no longer serve to control rivals, but must be used to ensure the safety of our entire planet. This is the fundamental step. Only when we transform the map of power from an instrument of control into a foundation of collective responsibility are we ready. Ready to take our place in the larger cosmic ecosystem. Part 5. The Circle Broken, the Path to Contact. 5.1. The Constitution of Humanity. Introductory Statement. In this new paradigm, there is no place for kings or prophets. I am merely a proposer of ideas. I am not, and will never be, a leader. This transition is built upon collective consensus. The role of the observer is not to rule, but to present a hypothesis. The responsibility lies with every global citizen to release the old polarizations of left versus right, and creationism versus evolution. The vision of cosmic unification. First contact is not an invasion, it is a mirror. Our cosmic visitors show us what we can become, a mature civilization living beyond scarcity and war. To achieve this, we must accept creevolution, terminate our internal ideological wars, embrace BETH, understand that the cosmos is fundamentally peaceful at a high technological level, implement UPATM, demand total transparency and truth. We are not alone. We have never been alone. It is time to grow up. 5.2. The 7-step mandate, the roadmap. Based on current insights and observations, the following steps constitute the logical and necessary progression toward open interaction. Article 0. The prerequisite of integrity. The extraterrestrial presence, ET, monitors all individuals and is aware of those who seek to obstruct contact through deception. ET will not intervene in such foul play, but will simply postpone negotiations. Their presence is a guarantee of universal peace. The only question is whether humanity will cooperate voluntarily. If not, ET will take the necessary measures to ensure their own peaceful existence remains guaranteed at a distance outside our planetary atmosphere. Article 1. Universal disarmament. All weapons, private, civil, military, professional, and industrial, must be deactivated and secured. This applies to all devices and objects capable of being used as weaponry. Article 2. Stabilization of the total supply chain. The costs of housing, clothing, food, and water must be frozen immediately across the entire vertical supply chain. This mandate ensures that basic survival is decoupled from economic volatility during the transition. 2.A. Full spectrum freeze. This price freeze applies to all constituent parts of the chain, including but not limited to raw materials, energy and fuel costs, logistics, taxes, and labor wages. No entity may increase prices at any stage of production or distribution. 2.B. Scope of goods. While mandatory for all essential survival goods, Tier 1, it is strongly recommended to extend the stabilization to the mid-market segment, Tier 2, to prevent market collapse and ensure social tranquility. 2.C. Universal provision. It is a fundamental requirement that every human being is provided with these basic needs, unconditional and free of economic pressure, at minimum for the duration of the voting process. Article 3. Governmental verification. Governments must confirm and enforce Articles 1 and 2 through non-violent means. Only once these conditions are guaranteed will ET provide irrefutable proof of their presence on Earth. Article 4. Communication and representation. ET will establish a clear method of communication and designate an interim human contact person/spokesperson to act on behalf of humanity. Article 5. The democratic mandate. 5A. Through a tamper-proof system, both parties will present and discuss their conditions. 5.B. A fully democratic, safe, and verifiable vote will be held. A unanimous consensus, greater than 99.999%, is required to proceed with first contact. Negotiation. Points 5.A and 5.B will be adjusted and re-voted upon until a consensus is reached that allows contact for those who desire it. The method and location of contact shall be determined by a majority vote, greater than 66.666%. Note: a unanimous vote against contact does not mean the ET presence departs, or that peace negotiations end. See Article 6. Article 6. The absolute requirement. 6A. Further proposals will be communicated and voted upon via the designated spokesperson. 6.B. The hard requirement. Humanity must irreversibly dismantle and decommission all spacefaring weapons, including weapons of mass destruction, and all production means for such technology. This is the non-negotiable condition for eternal peace in the universe. Article 7. The final pathways. 7A. Total isolation. If humanity unanimously rejects contact but adheres to Article 6.B, ET will monitor from a permanent, imperceptible distance. Humanity guarantees never to venture beyond our own atmosphere. 7.B. Regulated interaction. A negotiated middle ground where specific forms of contact are agreed upon by both parties. ET will act through a representative body for the rest of the universe. 7.C. Total integration. Humanity chooses to learn and integrate into the cosmic family. ET will facilitate our transition into the universal community, with all major worldly decisions remaining subject to democratic human voting. Closing disclaimer. We may enter a loop between these articles and the hard requirement if disarmament is refused or if foul play continues. However, the time has come to put first contact on the agenda. These points are a proposed framework. The global decision to proceed rests with us. Happy first contact! Closing statement. The choice is ours. We stand on a threshold that we, as humanity, have never reached before. The paradox of the 21st century is clear. We have the technology of gods, but the quarrels of children. The map of power has shown us how we are imprisoned, but the 7-step mandate shows that the key to the prison is in our own hands. This plan is not a utopia, it is a necessity. As I have come to understand together with Tom and his family, the cosmos is not waiting for our weapons or our flags. The cosmos is waiting for our maturity. The BETH Hypothesis teaches us that peace is the only way to the stars. Cree-evolution teaches us that our origin and our science are one great, brilliant algorithm. And Upa Team offers us the practical tools to break the checkmate. First contact is not an event that happens to us, it is a status that we must earn. It begins with the refusal to remain fuel for a system of secrecy and fear. It begins with the demand for transparency, for truth, and for a planet that dares to see itself as one whole. I am not a leader, not a king, and not a prophet. I am a messenger of a possibility. The responsibility for the next step lies with you, with all of us. The gateway to the stars is slightly ajar. Do we finally dare, as humanity, to grow up and step outside? Join the transition. Read the full Upat M manifesto. It is time for first contact. Hans J.C. Bakker, March 2026, Limmen, the Netherlands.